also have an audience that is joining us from their home base, from the office. So really great to have you here as well for the European Partnership Stakeholder Forum 2025. My name is Charlotte van Veldhoven-Geerdink, and it's a great pleasure to be moderating this first panel, but also the second panel in the afternoon. And to all of you back home, but also all of you here in the audience, if you'd like to engage with us online as well, there is a hashtag that you can use, and that's the hashtag PSForum25. So PSForum25. Good. Then, without any further ado, I'd like to say we are going to get started, and it is my great pleasure to introduce to you for the high-level keynote of today, Marc Lemaitre, the Director General of DG RTD within the European Commission. Please give him a big hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. A very good, still morning. Everyone, colleagues, friends of partnerships, no doubt, whether you are here in the room or joining us online, a very warm welcome from my side as well. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today at the 4th edition of the European Partnership Stakeholder Forum, and to see so many of you gathered to discuss and reflect on the future of European partnerships. Let me begin by thanking you for your commitment, because your commitment to join forces and collaborate is a key engine to progress on Europe's biggest challenges. Let's indeed remind ourselves that partnerships have been and will continue to be one of the most successful features of the European research area, combining the programming and funding potential of both public and private actors and aligning priorities, even if not enough yet, I would say, at European, national and regional level. Our chosen theme for this year, Reimagining Partnerships, the Road to FP10, reflects the turning point we have arrived at as we are shaping the next chapter of our Research and Innovation Framework Programme, and therefore also of our partnership instrument. This summer we unveiled our proposal for the next multi-annual financial framework, and with it, the 10th Framework Programme, still to be called Horizon Europe. Let me emphasize a crucial point here. While this proposal creates a standalone framework programme, it is part of a bigger shift in the MFF, and the MFF creates a further engine for Europe's competitiveness, the European Competitiveness Fund. Mario Draghi could not have been clearer. Europe needs to ensure that excellent science turns into strategic technologies at a faster and more substantive scale. This is exactly where partnerships, including our future joint undertakings, could play a decisive role, acting as a prime bridge between Horizon Europe and the European Competitiveness Fund. In this vision, the research and innovation activities of our partnerships will be funded through Horizon Europe, and the Competitiveness Fund will provide the capital needed for industrial deployment and market creation. Now, before I elaborate on the content of the FP10 proposal and the future of our European partnerships, I would like to shortly reflect on their journey so far. Many of you will recall our forum of last year, where we celebrated 20 years of European partnerships and highlighted the important role they have played in jointly working together on our European objectives. Looking back, as far back as FP6, partnerships were modest instruments for coordination between member states. Over the past 20 years, they have transformed into something much greater. Intricate forms of cooperation between public and private actors, constituting true pillars of our European research area. From scaling green hydrogen to supercharging AI-driven diagnostics for healthier lives and fortifying high-performance computing, our partnerships have pooled expertise and funding, aligned priorities, and turned shared ambition into tangible impact, strengthening Europe's global competitiveness. The importance of our partnerships is also evidenced by the financial commitments from all partners, which have continuously grown over the past 2 decades. And while the landscape of partnerships and partnership instruments have been frequently restructured over the different framework programs, their raison d'être has remained unchanged in the last 2 decades: to pool and mobilize resources towards common objectives. This is precisely what makes partnerships more important than ever. We must increasingly bundle our forces as the challenges we face become bigger and more pressing. Yet while European partnerships have undeniably contributed to the progress over the past 2 decades, we must also acknowledge that the instrument itself and its implementation need a revamp. A focus on legacy partnerships in successive selection rounds, sometimes suboptimal implementation modes causing administrative burdens and fragmented governance, unclear partner contributions, and uneven participation have at times slowed momentum and diluted impact. These challenges remind us that longevity alone is no guarantee for excellence. It demands constant scrutiny and, at times, reform to stay fit for purpose. With this in mind, let me now turn to our proposal and emphasize 3 key points. First, partnerships will remain central to the framework program, where we need to tackle an important common challenge or secure our global competitiveness. Second, simplification is a core ambition of FP10 to ensure that participation becomes more straightforward, predictable, and accessible for all stakeholders. This, of course, includes our future partnerships. And third, some argue that continuing the current implementation modes with minor improvements would suffice. We believe otherwise. As the title of this forum suggests, it is time to reimagine partnerships and how they can operate. So what does this mean in practice, reimagining partnerships? As the details will be discussed in the 2 panel sessions of this forum, let me just paint a broad picture for you. At the core of our approach to European partnerships under FP10 lies the idea of delivering maximum impact with minimum complexity. Partnerships must be the mechanisms that turn fragmentation into coordinated strength, not contribute to fragmentation themselves. This will demand discipline to ensure that partnerships are created only where they are needed, where they matter, and where they have the potential and critical mass to deliver, not out of habit or institutional comfort. In practice, this means continuing the rationalization we have already started, moving from more than 120 partnerships under Horizon 2020 to around 60 today, and now towards a more focused and truly strategic portfolio under FP10. Partnerships must be chosen because they deliver something no member state, no sector, and no program can achieve alone, and with a clear purpose and destination in mind to accelerate climate resilience, secure digital leadership, and build the technological capabilities that define long-term competitiveness. To achieve this, we propose to build a strategic and coherent portfolio through a stringent and focused selection procedure that addresses past shortcomings. To take this ambition seriously, we need a methodology to underpin our future portfolio decisions. This is where our new Commission expert group on directional initiatives comes in. This expert group is tasked with drafting recommendations to help us identify thematic areas best suited for partnerships and help shape an optimized, coherent, and high-impact portfolio. Ultimately, we aim to have a more competitive, open, evidence-driven, and transparent selection process that better supports trust building among stakeholders. This will address member states' calls for stronger involvement and remedy past concerns regarding transparency. We also want to rationalize our toolbox of partnership instruments, where under the current Horizon Europe in practice, 5 different types are currently in use. Our ambition is simple: to remove the current complexity and to move towards a single and unified framework for implementing partnerships in tripartite mode: EU, member states, and the private sector. Therefore, instead of multiple partnership instruments with similar purposes but different rules, we have proposed a default instrument governed by a Memorandum of Understanding and implemented through the Horizon Europe work programs, with initiatives based on Article 185 and 187 only being used in exceptional cases. The Union, member states and industry will work together like real partners on important challenges. This is how Europe will achieve its biggest breakthroughs, when public vision meets private agility. Let me stress one final point. Nothing is pre-decided today, and the future portfolio of European partnerships, including joint undertakings, will ultimately be determined by the priorities and the budget of the next MFF. To conclude, colleagues, it is fair to say that we have come a long way, and we can be proud of what we have achieved together. At the same time, we need to be honest about what works and what doesn't. Commitment is not the same as impact. Our goal is simple, and I'm sure that everyone in this room and online shares it: make partnerships leaner, faster, and more impactful, so that every effort translates into real results for Europe's citizens. And this requires choices. Not every idea can become a partnership. Not every existing partnership should continue by default. Focus is not a constraint, but the condition for excellence. FP10 gives us the chance to think strategically, to act together, and to achieve what no single actor could achieve alone. Let's seize that opportunity and do it boldly, but with very clear purpose. I hope you will enjoy today's forum and the lively discussions ahead. I very much look forward to learning about the outcomes of the panels and seeing how our shared ideas and experiences will shape the next chapter of European partnerships. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lemaitre, for your very kind opening words, picking up on 3 key words that you mentioned: leaner, faster, and impactful, and that is exactly what we will be looking at throughout the course of today. Good, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the partnerships in general, took you a little bit from the history of the partnerships back in FP6 to the proposal within FP10, but of course you would like to learn a little bit more about what we could potentially expect, and not everything has been decided yet. And there's no better way than to further hear from the European Commission. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Pauline Rouch. She's the director of the Common Policy Center, also DG RTD. Really looking forward to your presentation, so please give her a big applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone, and my turn to welcome you to today's forum. Our Director General, Mr. Lemaitre, already presented the main features of our new proposal for partnerships in the FP10. And judging from the Slido, this presentation might be timely and of interest. So I think I can move. No? The other way, yeah. The green button, sorry. Ah, oui. Yes. Getting there. Very well, thank you. So, first, and I think it was clear from the presentation of Mr. Lemaitre, partnerships, European partnerships, remain with the FP10 proposal a cornerstone of EU research and innovation policy. because they mobilize public and private actors around shared objectives, they pool resources and scale them and offer long-term platforms for investments. And with the proposal for the FP10, we maintain the successful, what makes the success of the core of the model, which is that partnerships give strategic direction, they build critical mass, and they create dynamic ecosystems around them and around shared priorities. And we think that in today's geopolitical and global competitiveness context, partnerships, more than ever, play an important role in strengthening our technological capabilities to support our industrial ecosystems and help us build long-term resilience. So we use the lessons learned from the implementation of European partnerships from the current framework program to reinforce the role of partnerships in the new program Horizon Europe for 2034. So reimagining European partnerships. To meet this moment, the Commission has put forward what we think is an ambitious proposal that truly reimagines partnerships. We are proposing a simplified, more coherent toolbox that makes it easier to design and implement ambitious tripartite collaborations with less administrative complexity and more focus on impact. Because what we want to achieve is a true strategic and streamlined portfolio of partnerships. A portfolio that would avoid duplication, that would ensure coherence across the themes covered, and that is aligned with the Union's broader priorities for competitiveness and resilience. We are also, with our proposal, strengthening reciprocity. And this is very important. We want that partner contributions become more tangible, more consistent, and provide a stronger leverage for EU investment. Yeah, so based on the lessons learned from the current framework program, the proposal keeps what works and introduces new elements. So this is the legal package for Horizon Europe, and I think it's important you are familiar with the regulation for establishing the FP10, the specific program to implement the FP10. We have the tight connection with the regulation for the European Competitiveness Fund when it comes to the competitiveness part of collaborative research that is obviously quite pertinent for European partnerships. And also we wanted to flag to you that the performance framework regulation that applies to all Union programs and activities are a relevant legal act that we need to look at to understand as the FP10, because notably there you will have all the criteria set for the evaluation and the measuring of the performance of the FP10. There you have the key provisions on partnerships. They can be found in Article 11 of the proposal and Article 5 of the specific program. So in the proposal for the FP10, we define the purpose, the principles, the implementation modes, the contribution rules, and in the specific program, we provide detailed criteria for life cycle criteria for selection, implementation, and phasing out. I already mentioned the tight connection with between the framework program and the European Competitiveness Fund proposal. It's deliberately that they are interlinked because we want to create a seamless pathway from research to deployment and close the innovation gap that is often pointed as a weakness of the Union, the fact that we are not that good to transform our results outputs into products, technologies, or services that can find their way on the market. The tight connection between the framework program and the European Competitiveness Fund is, as I said, quite relevant for European partnerships, because the bridge between the two programs can really be done through European partnerships, where the European Competitiveness Fund can enter into the investment journey of partnerships for their activities of scaling, development, and deployment. The key principles of our proposal. First, as it was already said, partnerships should remain special purpose vehicles and only be created when they are truly necessary, when the action alone of the EU or of the member states is not meant to create the expected results. It's also a tool that we want to use to not only to scale our technological activities, but also to coordinate better between ourselves at different levels, EU, national, and industry, to coordinate our efforts, and by that I mean mostly investment efforts. So European partnerships, they need to be seen as instruments of strategic coordination, and this is particularly important, where we want to pool expertise and resources from all partners, the Union, the Member States, and the industry, so that together we can tackle the major challenges. The partnerships, European partnerships, they need to support the key EU policies and the strategic priorities of our Union. We know that the MFF will cover 7 years of activities, and it's important to have a framework in place that allow for covering all the strategic needs during this 7-year period. The selection, we want it to be competitive, but also transparent, evidence-based, and embedded in a coherent portfolio approach. So the merit of the partnerships cannot be seen alone on their own model, but in conjunction with the rest of the proposal for partnerships, so that we create this coherent portfolio. Partnerships also require a real shared commitment with long-term contributions from partners and centrally managed resources as the default implementation way, as we propose in our proposal. It's also very important to follow a life cycle approach with clear implementation plans and credible exit strategies. So let's move. So first, let's get a bit deeper into the portfolio building. As we explained, as you know, today we have around 60 partnerships, and 60 partnerships is too large and not sufficiently strategic. And it's also difficult, we have to underline this, for stakeholders to navigate. So, as I said earlier, to build this strategic and streamlined portfolio, we need to treat partnerships not in isolation, but as interconnected elements of a coherent mass. The legacy initiatives and the weak portfolio logic that we had until now has led to overlaps, duplications, and inconsistent application of selection criteria. That's why we propose an evidence-based portfolio methodology with a competitive selection process. Our Director General already mentioned that we have an expert group working on that, and you will hear in this afternoon session how they are helping us to shape this approach. Coming back to the specific program, it introduces refined and more quantifiable criteria aligned with the maturity and the ambition of the initiatives. And we think that together these processes will lead to a limited, strategic, and coherent portfolio. Now let's turn to Toolbox. We were pleased with the team to see from the Slido that simplification was close to oh my God or vague, because simplification is really something that was at the heart of our intentions when we started drafting the provision on partnerships for the FP10. We know already we have plenty of different models, the co-program, the co-funded, the treaty-based partnerships, Article 185, 187, we have the EIT KICS, and then we have a very fragmented implementation structure and a very complex as well legal landscape. And we have noticed, and this is the return on experience that was important as well in the preparation of the FP10, is that we have seen that the rigid application of partnerships typologies, those 5 different models, has led to overlaps in thematic fields and also different implementation modes and that are not, let's say, bringing all the benefits that we had hoped for. So that's why we propose to replace the construction that you know today with something that is much more, much simpler. So we propose by default a work program-based instrument. This will be the default mode of implementation, and it will integrate what is today known as co-program and co-funded partnerships. This work program-based instrument will work on the basis of a memorandum of understanding that will lay out the framework for collaboration. This model of memorandum of understanding is not set out in the legal text of the FP10, as you have seen. This maybe explains the vague comment in the Slido, and this is, let's say, something that we are preparing along the way and will be shared when is the right moment with co-legislators and partners in the months to come. Partnerships calls, co-designs. So what is important is that we will implement through the work program, and we are proposing to operate partnerships with central management of financial resources. And this is a new feature of the European partnerships that is important to us for simplification reasons. In exceptional cases, and when it's duly justified, the treaty-based partnerships, like Article 185 and 187 for joint undertakings, will be able to kick in. As you know, for those, they are bound by a different legal base, and it's the Single Basic Act on which the Commission is working for the next MFF period, with the objective to adopt our proposal by the end of next year. Last point, very important, is that by default, we propose that European partnerships be tripartite, also because we see partnerships are a key instrument for coordination. Hence, we want to have all partners around the table. Harmonization was the second driver of our proposal, because I will not repeat, today's landscape is fragmented, different modes, inconsistent treatment of contributions, multiple implementation structures. So we need to harmonize. We felt we needed to harmonize all this. The proposal introduces a partner's contribution model with clear financial commitments and project-level co-financing, supported by harmonized rules and consistent implementation modalities. Transparency, openness, and flexibility are the principles to ensure that partnerships operate on a level playing field and that they are able to adapt to evolving needs. Of course, what is very important is to have this continuous monitoring of partnerships with shared indicators that will strengthen accountability and enable informed steering. And this, having a strong monitoring framework, also depends on the leanness of the implementation form. The more implementation forms we have, the more difficult it is to gather data that is comparable, usable, and usable for monitoring. Last point is the sunset clause and transition arrangements that will prevent the accumulation of legacy structures and ensure alignment with future MFF periods. Voilà. I'm done, almost. So the key takeaways. Thank you for your attention. I gather it was quite long, and I'm sure that even after this presentation, you will have many questions, but the day will be long and has just started, so I hope that by the time the conference ends, you'll have answers to your questions. So to conclude, the legal package around Horizon Europe, the new Horizon Europe, FP10, puts forward a future partnership landscape that is more strategic, more transparent, truly performance-driven, and that will give us the tools to focus the efforts, our common efforts and shared efforts, where it matters most. We will, thanks to our proposal, we are confident that we will manage to reinforce co-investment to clarify the rules, ensuring that every euro mobilized through partnerships delivers better, more measurable results for Europe. And above all, these reforms position European partnerships as major drivers of the Union's competitiveness and resilience, a central instrument for shaping Europe's technological and industrial future. With this, I thank you for your attention. Looking forward to the panel discussion. Charlotte, over to you. I was far too long. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauline, and you were right in time, so thanks a lot for that. If you can please take your seat already there. So really good to see the ambition that the European Commission has for the European partnerships. I'm really thankful also to you that you really set out the legal base, but also the key principles, the toolbox, the portfolio, and the harmonization that you have in mind. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have a panel discussion with title Shaping Collaboration, European Partnerships, under FP10, where we will be discussing the novelties that we face, but also how the partnerships are being embedded within the broader R&I landscape, also in relationship to, as already mentioned, Article 185, but also the European Competitiveness Fund, and also the IPCIs, for example. So there's a lot that we can discuss today. We're not going to do that alone. We're going to do that with the regional perspective, with the business perspective, with a ministry perspective. So we have a lot in the mix for today as well. And I'd like to call out to the stage the other distinguished panel members that we have invited for this discussion. I would say gentlemen first, because we have an all-lady panel, lucky you. Alexandre Affre, Deputy Director General at Business Europe. Please give him a big hand. Benedicte Leusets from the Research Council of Norway, Executive Director, Research System and Internationalization. Brita Lindholm, Director at the European Region Research and Innovation Network, better known as ERIN. Good. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're also very happy to welcome a participant who's joining us online, and that is Lucy Núñez Tallapunta from the Czech Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports, and she's the Director of the Department of R&D. So let's see if we have Lucy here. Yes, there you are. Can you see us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We can see you as well. So thank you so much for joining us, which we really appreciate. And since we have this live connection, we thought it would be a good idea to first get started with a question for you, Lucy. And I think we can dig right into it. We know you're a member of the Partnership Knowledge Hub as a representative of the Czech Republic, very involved in co-funded partnerships with a lot of expertise. And as you know very well, member states have very long criticized also the implementation of the co-funded partnerships through grant agreements due to a lack of flexibility and high administrative burden. But lucky you, I would say, FP10 now proposes a different kind of framework where the Memorandum of Understanding approach, as surely you've just heard us as well right now, has been proposed, combined with central financial management as an alternative framework for future partnerships. So it would be great if you could comment on that, Lucy. Do you agree with the Commission's proposal for this? Do you think that is an improvement, or you would say, I'd rather like to stick to the grant agreement approach as we know it right now. So perhaps first to comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the question, and thank you again for inviting me. And I'm really sorry that I can't be with you in person, but due to health problems, I'm not able to travel. So back to your question. Yes, indeed. We are, I must say, happy with the change. We definitely don't want to stick to the current form of implementation through the grant agreements, because we think that as the proposal is right now, as we see it, the implementation of the single memorandum of understanding and the midterm evaluation, which is also very, very important to have, can be functioning, and it could be a good step in the right direction. This situation that we are witnessing currently right now is sometimes very chaotic. You said maybe that it's not flexible. I would say maybe that sometimes it's flexible too much, because in some partnerships something is allowed, in some partnerships something is not allowed, and we don't know exactly what are the rules behind it. So in all the memorandum of understanding, if it's for the whole period of the duration of the partnerships, would be definitely an asset, and is it a positive step? Maybe I would also like to comment the centralized management of funds.
Please do so.
Yes, yeah, because it's also a very interesting idea. I think that at least in our country we are very open to it, and we think that it could happen. It could be a good choice. Of course, it definitely depends on the implementation and on the rules that will be behind, and we will have to be very careful about how it works. Because if it's managed centrally, then we have to know what's behind that. We have to know what are the procedures, and we have to be sure that it works. Every time when it's centralized, it has, of course, pros and cons, and something against. So this is my preliminary maybe opinion on what's written in the proposal. And we are looking forward to all the concrete information, to the, for example, example of the memorandum of understanding, something that is really more concrete, to have more concrete opinion on that.
Okay. Thanks for that, Lucy. You said, okay, the idea of a memorandum of understanding is something that you would support, but of course, the devil is in the details. Just another follow-up question to you. What we've heard already this morning also, I think from Pauline, I'd like to learn from you as well, Lucy. The memorandum of understanding should focus on results, on reporting requirements, on commitments and governance. Is that exactly what an MOU should focus on, or is there a specific component where you would say that definitely needs to be part and parcel of that MOU?
Yes, thank you. Well, maybe this is too early to say, because we would like to see first what is the opinion inside or behind the memorandum of understanding, what exactly to what detail this memorandum of understanding is going to be prepared. And of course, it is extremely important to have already some kind of picture of what's going to be monitored, what's going to be evaluated. And then we can add maybe some more layers, some, like more detail into it. But still, in this time, I think it's too early to comment on it.
Okay, very clear. So the idea is very good, and we'll see how this will be further conceived. So thanks for that. Turning again to Pauline with a question to you. I know you set out the partnerships, but I think this is your time a bit as well to pitch the partnerships. You already referred to the Slido questions, where people, seem to be a bit hesitant, I would say, when it comes to, okay, do we like this new direction and approach? What kind of added value do you really think as a key component brings this new partnership approach?
Thank you, Charlotte. I think for us, we need to come back to the policy objectives that we attached to DFP10 as an instrument, and the partnerships as a key instrument within DFP10. EU money compared to the sum of national budgets and compared to the investment capacity of the private sector is very little. I think the figure is to say it's 1/3. When we look at the research and innovation budgets and we compare ourselves with other parts of the world, we see that normally it's 1/3 coming from public, 2/3 coming from private. And within the 1/3 that is public, the EU money is 10%.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recall as well the overall dimension of all this. So knowing that we have, let's say, very tiny part of the investment capacity at EU level, what was important for us in policy terms was to make sure that this small investment has a lot of impact, the most impact possible. And one point. The second point, because when we compare ourselves to other parts of the world, like in China or in the US, we also see that where we are a bit weaker is in coordination of efforts. Of course, we have frontiers between ourselves. I mean, the construction, the political construction is very unique. So coordination of efforts, it's also a policy objective that we pursue at EU level. So I would say coordination and impact. And with these two strong policy objectives in mind, and also based on the lessons learned, looking at partnerships throughout the FPs with those lenses on, we came up with this proposal for, I will repeat again, this portfolio approach. We believe very strongly in this as a concept. Second, the simplification of our landscape. And the third, and something that is extremely important for us, is the way that we propose to harmonize the rules for the partner contributions, and also to make sure that the partners contribute with financially to the effort. So, voilà, this is what I think I wanted to recall, the policy objectives behind then the concrete proposal.
Okay, that's a very clear point, I must say, two very clear points. So really create the most impact, because 10%, it's not a lot, but at least I think it's good to know that it's only 10%, because if you would invest 70% and industry only 10 to 20%, then I don't think we have a very good partnership approach. Also that with this 10%, you would like to bring as much coordination as possible, but as said, that takes a lot of effort, and by kind of simplifying the landscape, you want to make those coordination efforts much more lean as a structure. So we can discuss that in more detail later on as well. Coming to Benedicte, the funder perspective, really happy to have you here as well. I know the Research Council of Norway is involved in many European projects and national projects as well, where you often blend public and private funding, very active partner on both levels. From your experience, what are the biggest practical challenges in aligning national and European funding frameworks? Because you have your own timelines from the European level, there are their own timelines, times 60 partnerships, because there are different kind of timelines again. So do you think FP10 will really realize a better centralized approach and make things easier for you, or perhaps harder? We're here to be honest again. Well, if you can take the mic. Yeah, it's switched on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I will actually start with saying that we are very positive to the proposals of partnerships in the next framework program, both that it actually will remain and play a key role, and also the announcement of several of the novelties, as they are called. So moving it from sort of many smaller partnerships to a direction of large strategic ones, strengthening three-party collaboration. We think this is very important, and maybe one of the reasons why partnerships are so important. And we also take great interest in the process, the proposed action point of creating strategic and coherent portfolio approach. So I would just actually start by saying that we are very positive on the proposals. And looking into it, obviously, more
I see
closer.
Pauline laughing. It's like, luckily we have one voice, very positive. So keep it up. Go ahead, Benedict.
As I saw of all the words coming up here, maybe this is not just on regular basis. We are somewhat positive. I would just say that the Research Council in Norway of Norway is the key funding organization for research and innovation in Norway, being a very broad research council involving both research organization and industrial companies. And for the companies, the funding from the Research Council is normally blended with their own in-kind contributions. And in our experience, the institutionalized and co-program partnerships are key and a very popular instrument for the industry, as they are close to the industrial needs. So from our perspective, the co-funded partnerships are important as they complement and strengthen our national effort. As a result of this, Norway is involved in almost all European partnerships, reflecting the importance of these collaboration for our national research and innovation landscape. But we also see some potential challenges. Although our national priorities are in Norway to a large extent well aligned with the European level, the alignment with European funding frameworks can be a major challenge due to differences in timing, planning, and involvement. And the differences in timing is related to both decision-making and budgeting processes, which I believe will be in several national level. And all of these processes may not always align with European partnership goals and timelines, and this can lead to challenges in synchronizing national and EU level activities, as I'm sure you already know. In Research Council of Norway, we have today a structure with the overall board and 11 national portfolio boards, spending several years developing that method. And we'll be happy to be in contact if that's of any interest. It works very well, but planning and timing is essential to make this work. So taking this into account, we see some challenges. For example, our administration, national portfolio boards, and our Horizon Europe Programme Committee representatives need to be closely involved in both the selection of and the operational phases in the partnership to ensure best possible match between our national programs and our participation in the partnerships. So, in other words, we need early involvement and sufficiently long and transparent planning and budgeting process for the partnerships.
Okay, thanks for that. To be the devil's advocate, if I may, Benedict, it kind of like calling for this better alignment in terms of timing, planning, and involvement.
Yeah.
And now we just talk the planning of the partnerships on European level and Norway, but like tons of more member states, associated countries.
Absolutely.
Is that even possible and feasible? Or do we need to say, okay, it will never be a perfect fit between alignments of national and European programs? Just to be realistic.
Also, perfect is a very ambitious word, in all these ambitions here. But I think actually there is a good direction here in improving, and I think it's possible to an extent. I think I would need a very long-term planning on both the selection of the partnerships and also the selection or sort of portfolio steering of the activities within each partnerships. So if it's possible to frame that in a long-term sort of perspective, then it will be possible, I think, for a national level to sort of build their own strategies within these. So I think it's actually a very good way forward. And for example, in Norway, there was a lot of sort of resistance going forward, developing this portfolio logic. But I think it's a good way to go forward. But obviously, this is even more complex. but the complexity is already there.
Yeah.
So I don't really see that this should stand in any way for being more clear and more. I think also for the industry, it would be good to know how to plan and how to get involved at an early stage. And also if one is going to have a financial management, this needs to be several years before the actual action takes place. So I think ideally we would like to have a well-functioned feedback loop from activities at EU level to national portfolio boards and vice versa to the partnerships. So that's...
So start early, really ensure that kind of alignment that when something is created, it's also very complementary to what you do on a national level, of course.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not going to conceive new programs which in the end will happen already on the European level because you can't invest every euro twice.
Absolutely,
yeah,
and also maybe have that sort of parallel phase of developing strategic alignment and then developing as actually the implementation phase, because they have to go hand in hand, and planning takes time, so that will be a delay. So if it's possible to do this in parallel, it could also speed up the process.
Yeah, very good suggestion. And also for reaching out to the European Commission to also learn from the Norwegian case. I'm sure that can be set up. Benedict, you briefly discussed also that especially on the national level, you see the programs are very close to industrial needs. Making this transition then to Alexandra when we talk about industrial needs and indeed about companies that commit their resources to these partnerships on a daily basis. Do you believe that the approach to the partnerships as being done right now in FP10 will strengthen Europe's competitiveness?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I must say I was impressed by the answer to the first question on the survey. So if I remember correctly, about 50% of participants
46,
today, 46
yeah.
Are involved in the partnership. So I'm not myself directly, so I'm quite humble in the discussion today, but I'm really trying to bring you a broad European business perspective into the discussion. And to your question, I mean, I want to believe that the answer is yes, because we cannot fail.
Yeah.
I mean, if Europe wants to be stronger and stronger in terms of competitiveness and resilience, research and innovation is absolutely, and doing even better on research innovation is absolutely critical, as I'm sure everybody knows and
But do we want to be better or must we be better? Because there's no other option.
Must. Yeah,
Good.
definitely.
Good. Yeah.
Now, on the Commission proposal itself, I think it's probably, in my view, still early to say. We will be discussing about the rules and the design of the proposal. Maybe we will be discussing less about the budget for the overall budgetary envelope for Pillar 2 of FP. But of course, if you have the best rules without sufficient budgets, and Pauline mentioned the numbers, EU versus national versus private, etc. But one of our main objective in the negotiations now is to at least secure what we have for Pillar 2, but definitely trying to go beyond as well. Being aware of difficulties in negotiations, but so if you don't bring Pillar 2 and the partnership with a sufficiently strong financial envelope, it's going to be difficult to have the impact you want at the end. Of course, you can, but with higher budget, even better. So I wanted to mention this in the first comment. Then, of course, we have very high expectations on the new design of the partnerships. Why? Because by design, this is about collaboration. It has been said, and this is very much what companies want, this collaboration. companies can collaborate in very different ways, but the European partnerships are really, really instrumental in a structured way of collaboration between public, private, and all sides companies, all type of companies. So this is really essentials, and where we have very high expectations. I think it's also fair to say, if we look at history of FPs, partnerships, if I'm correct, and Pillar 2, this is where it has generated the highest, it has the highest leverage effect compared to other parts of FP. So this is also something we should keep in mind and try to do even better by the mobilization of resources, by leveraging resources. So high expectations. Maybe final words for first interventions. They are, I mean, when I'm listening to our membership, my members, there are also warnings with the proposal. One of them is about the cash contribution versus in-kind contribution. We really need cash contribution can be justified, but we need also to recognize the value of in-kind contribution from companies. That is absolutely key. And I'm even hearing some saying, if not, this can be a showstopper for engagement into partnership by certain companies. So this we need to acknowledge.
That's perhaps also related to the flexibility approach, right? What kind of contribution
Yes.
one can make, and that it doesn't have to be set into stone from the beginning. It's
And
either
you need
cash or in
flexibility.
kind, but you can be flexible throughout the course of such a program.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need the flexibility,
Yeah.
and really to acknowledge that for companies, in-kind contribution is really substantial. Yeah, and maybe a final word on warnings is, I'm not sure if this is the best word here, but yeah, back to your question, we talk about competitiveness. I think industry company knows very well what is competitiveness, what is being competitive in the current world. So they need to be around the table. They need to be at the table to discuss the programming and the.
So is that sufficiently facilitated, would you say, that they have a seat at the table because they know exactly what needs to be done within their specific sector?
Yes, I mean this is really where it matters. It was mentioned a few times. This is the proposal is about tripartite.
Yeah.
European, national, and the private sector. So this needs to be also materialized when we are talking about the planning and the programming.
Okay, and probably also when we talk about flexibility, I mean, industry is probably also a very good place to see, okay, something happened in the world, right? I mean, that's happening all the time. We've had COVID, we have a lot of geopolitical tensions to be able to adapt to the new situation as well, right? I mean...
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the companies involved in partnerships are global, very much engaged in markets worldwide. So they have very much on-the-ground expertise what is happening where. And this is also what needs to be reflecting in the programming of
and that's why we have a nice division with the Commission 10% and the other parts more coming from the public and the private side as well in terms of investments. Thanks a lot for that, Alexandre. Coming to the regions, Purita, really happy to have you here on stage as well. I know Aaron is a network that gathers about 120 regional organizations from over 20 European countries, so a really big network. So what is the role of regions in partnerships? Happy to learn more about that and how your vision is on the new approach that we see in FP10, to first start with that.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And so I'm actually kind of bringing more complexity to the discussion because, of course, now when we add regions to the to the plate. We also mean more policy coordination, but of course also potentially more potential for joint investments. So something to keep in mind. So I wanted to give a little bit of a snapshot of our experience from partnership. A little bit like Alexandra, I'm also coming from it from a more perspective of representing the membership and their different participation in the partnerships, and just a kind of a short reflection on the different types of partnerships. So if our best case partnership from the regional perspective is the co-funded partnerships, because there we see some regions investing alongside with member states. On the partnerships such as clean energy transition and so on, and have also been able to participate in to somewhat at least in the strategic development of the vision of those partnerships. The program partnerships are the most complicated one from the, let's say, government perspective, because many of them do not actually allow local and regional governments to participate. There has been an exception in the Basel, and it has been the CCAM, so Connected, Coordinated and Automated Mobility, with a new governance model that allowed really all stakeholders to take an active role. We see a number of members being active in these partnerships during the past years. Now, of course, future will change, so we'll get to that later. And then on the institutionalized partnership perspective, we also see that there's been an increased interest to involve the regional stakeholders, but there maybe due to also some of the structural issues, the role has been rather limited to being in a stakeholder group and mostly looking at funding synergies and not really strategic engagement, I would say, in the partnerships. Well, having said that, of course, so in short, the summary is that there's a lot to do. Let's put it this way. At the same time, of course, it's a little bit of pity because, of course, regions do have often in many member states the role of being in charge of economic development. They're also there to mobilize the different stakeholders that are important for research and innovation, and of course have been engaged in implementing regional innovation strategies for quite some time. So this was also one element that we were kind of assessing, what's the link with the smart specialization and the partnership. So unfortunately, it's still a little bit that those things go in different tracks. So the kind of regional engagement and then the national engagement, maybe with so hopefully the future tripartite will include union, private and public, and include also the regional dimension, because we need also to, and I think at the end it's about mobilizing the territorial ecosystems and different stakeholders. It's not about the region per se being there. It's a bit what Marc Lemaitre said. I think he said that it's the public vision and private agility. So we should also link that the regional dimension in this way.
Also thinking about the way we create impact, right? I mean, we talk a lot of times when we talk about impact, about economic impact, but you can bring a lot of societal impact as well, because you're so close to the citizen as well, to bring forward many different kind of topics.
I think it's the both, because on one hand there's the economic dimension of it, where the regions do have an important role in supporting important sectors, have a role in mobilizing actors in the value chain. So that's the economic part, but then of course there's a very strong social part as well.
Okay, good. Then another follow-up question to you as well. We talk about this partnership approach, but what kind of links do you see with other instruments? I mean, Alexandra has been very clear. We have this pillar 2, where we find the partnerships, has to be very strong. There's a lot of competition happening here, but there are other parts as well. When you look at Pillar 3, EIC, a lot of support for startups, for scale-ups. What kind of linkages do you see?
Well, one could, of course, talk lengthily about this. Maybe I will just highlight here quickly the EU missions and the mission-oriented approach, because this is something we've been very fond of from the local and regional perspective. And of course, we see a lot of links with co-funded partnerships as well, because it's about those transformations, and the link is strong. And I also wanted to highlight it because we see a bit less this societal perspective in the new Horizon Europe proposal. So it's also important not to forget that the social aspects is there important also. It cannot be also detached from competitiveness. These go hand in hand. And maybe a comment on the moonshots, for example, which is a kind of a little sister of the EU missions, if we can say it like this. Of course, that's a bit much more, I would see it, a much more specific proposal linking to like boosting a technology, for example. But the mission-oriented approach could be useful in this type of an approach.
Okay,
also.
Good to know that you're a big fan of missions, which from your perspective should be kept. So good to have that linkage indeed that we can make there. Good. I'd like to come back to you, Lucy, if I may. We've already discussed that currently within Horizon Europe we have a total of 60 partnerships. We have more than 120 under the previous program, and now the idea is to further slim it down and to create this portfolio approach. So if you look at this portfolio potential, does it really have potential for further streamlining? Happy to have your comment on that.
Yes, thank you. Very concretely to your question, yes, of course, there's also potential for further streamlining. Of course, we are also one of that. But I just want to comment maybe more in general about in what situation we are, because I think that now we are reaching a stage when we are talking about the European partnerships in a completely different language than we used to be. This term now, at least for me, means something a bit different from what we knew and what we were used to in FP10 and in maybe previous framework program as well. So maybe sometimes we are a bit confused by the terminology, because some players are used to some concepts, and we maybe don't understand what is really behind this new concept. And now it's really important to, of course, know what is the Commission's ideas on this. We used to be used to European partnerships and their, predecessors of the European partnerships in forms of joint program initiatives, JTIs, ERANETs, European joint programs. But this is not longer the case for the FP10. We know that the European Commission aims much higher. European partnerships are to become more larger and ambitious, and maybe somehow divided internally into some subcategories, etc. But all in all, with a huge purpose, and we still don't know how this large form of cooperation will work, whether it will be something also similar to missions, as was already mentioned here. So this concept is still a bit blurred. The idea of turning partnership into something much bigger is not bad at all. The question is, what will happen to what we understand as European partnerships in FP10? And I don't mean the concrete example of European partnerships, but in general, smaller scale form of cooperation that maybe do not fit into the big strategic priorities. Although we know that this discussion will be taken somewhere in parallel, this also, we think, needs to be clarified, and we need to have some satisfactory answer to this question, even if the answer is that these forms of cooperation will simply not be supported.
Okay.
So in general, I must say that I agree personally with the current approach to partnerships. They should provide significant added value. This is very clear. They should have long-term and, of course, also some short-term goals, clear milestones. The number of partnerships must be reduced. This is also something very clear. And the idea of tripartite model is more than logical and is suitable to this idea. When deciding on the future partnerships for the FP10, now it seems to be crucial to determine whether they will be based on the declared priorities reflected in the European Competitiveness Fund policy windows, and whether they will be subsequently financed by the Horizon Europe funds. This is very important for us from the perspective of the member state, because there might be some kind of discrepancy between what the European Commission proposes and what the member states want. However, I think that this discrepancy does not have to occur because the European Commission puts every effort to make this happen. But we need to know how it will work. And for this, we need to have the information, the explanation. We need to have everything to be explained and explained. And when you feel that everything has been explained, so you need to explain it again. So this is something that we really feel we are still a bit missing.
Yeah, so please,
yes,
go ahead.
Just really last comment on that. We believe that the European partnerships as such, as it's also called, they have to rely on the essence of the partnerships. So it means that they have to have some kind of shared view on the matter. This is important for the member states because without taking into account the views of member states, and of course also the private partners, the European Commission cannot, of course, achieve this shared vision. So we also go for some kind of rethinking the process, how the selection procedure is being done, and rethinking also the role of the member states based on the example of the FP10, because we know that during the negotiation of the FP9, this process was not ideal at all. So this is the expectation of the member states as well to be taken on board.
Thank you, Lucy. We'll later on also go a little bit more into detail about the selection criteria that you just mentioned. It seems to be from your story that yes, there is potential for further streamlining that you support, where you still have some open questions. And perhaps then turning to Pauline, because you're the European Commission, can you resonate a bit also with what Lucy has said? Okay, we're so used to certain terminology. We have the JPIs, we have the JTIs. What will be the default in the future? And partnerships will become bigger, it seems to be, with the portfolio approach, but hopefully still lean and mean enough to be able to steer them correctly. But can you really resonate with what Lucy has said? And perhaps take away some worries.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think that, Lucy, your intervention was very rich, and there are many points that, many of the points you made resonated with me. I will try to maybe cover two of them. So first, on the size, I mean, from our, let's say, intention with the criteria, selection criteria, that we are spelling out in the legal text. The clear intention was to come as a result with a smaller number of partnerships compared to what we have today. But I don't think that there is any indication, doesn't mean that it will be large or big partnerships. I don't think we have a size really issue in mind. I'm looking at my colleagues. They're not nodding nor saying anything, but at least, I mean, the intention is not to put a size tag on the partnership, but really to have impact. and to have something that is meaningful in portfolio approach. So it doesn't mean that it would be by default big size, and then one needs to define what is a big size. So difficult. So that is one point that I wanted to make. And then the second point that I wanted to make is something that many of you, it comes from things that I've heard this morning from most of the panelists, is the involvement of all parties in deciding when and how and which portfolio to set up. I think there is one important element there that we need to recall, is that before all of this even starts, what really matters is the steer that will be given to the entire MFF. How are you going to spend it, like FT addition, how to spend it? First is we have to decide collectively how we want to spend it, on which priorities. And this is clearly not the Commission deciding alone, is with interinstitutional partners, the European Parliament and the Member States. And this is something that is discussed in different fora. It will be the subject of an interinstitutional agreement between the three institutions on how to implement the MFF. And it's not because it's not discussed by our community that it doesn't impact us, because it will impact us, the way that it will be decided to collectively agree on the strategic priorities for the Union, and then decide how we're going to spend it. And this will already constrain our community, having those broad strategic perspective on given from the top leaders of the EU institutions. This will be the first constraint we will have to deal with. And I think it's important to recall that, because sometimes we look at things from, and that's totally normal and natural from our own community angle, but we are operating in a bigger...
Sometimes you have to zoom out.
Yes, in a bigger context. Yeah, I mean, I could continue, but I think...
Yeah. Now, maybe you set constraints, but on the other hand, it could also provide a lot of opportunity, right, to remain very positive. We've seen already that there is a plan to make huge investments in R&I, so I think that's a very good pathway ahead. And based on that, hopefully, indeed, there will be a very good, broader framework that we can rely upon. Okay, Alexandre, happy to learn from you as well. Do you feel comfortable with the potential of the portfolio approach for better streamlining among the partnerships?
Yeah, in general, yes. I think as a principle, we feel the quality should prevail over the quantity. So I think this is the spirit of a streamlining exercise. So by principle, yes. What is really key for us is, and it has been said by many, it's about impact, it's about creating added value, and such a streamlining exercise with this very much at the core can be very, very impactful. It's about selecting the right partnerships, and maybe not becoming, because of financial constraint, not becoming just a cutting cost exercise. And I'm not saying this is the approach at all, but there could be a risk that because of the financial constraints, then it's very much about where costs can be cut, and that would be the wrong mindset. We really need to have in the streamlining exercise the mindset of and the policymakers have the mindset of selecting the right partnership in terms of impact and creating value. I think this is
and
really
again,
where we are coming
with industry, of course, at the table, because I think it's a very important point that you made. It's not so much about the size, the quantity. It's really the qualitative approach that you should take in mind.
Absolutely, with industry there and companies. I think Pauline is correct absolutely when saying that the big picture will be decided by the co-legislators, and this we have to respect. We have to work into these boundaries, but then within those boundaries there will be still a lot to be discussed, and this is where you have to bring all the partners and the tripartite partners around the table.
Okay, thank you. Benedict, I can ask you as well. Kind of can predict the answer already, but I'll leave it up to you.
Well, first I think it was a good reminder about the shaping of the whole MFF still. And also thank you for clarifying. I think we didn't read it into, I think we also read more or less larger partnerships in size. So for me, this is also very good, I think, clarifying that it's quality and a strategic alignment that is the purpose. So I think we already said that we strongly support this. I think, just a last comment, I think with the ambition of streamlining, it is important, obviously, to acknowledge the value of the close and long-term trust and cooperation that has been developed over many years. And I guess all complexity and all wanting to change, going for a new direction, this is the most important thing, and this is why I think partnership is still remaining within the next Horizon Europe, is the success of that. So I think has been a cooperation of trust between member states, ministries, funding agencies, and also key industrial players. And I think this will be essential to developing the success framework around a portfolio approach. And just last, I would just say that I think it's important that the Partnership Knowledge Hub is involved early, and also that this is a sort of a more systematic involvement during the process. I know that it was said today that there is sort of another expert group, and I'm not so familiar with that. I'm sure it will be very helpful and very good, but I think also to build on the expertise that's already established and really involve them in all stages. I think that's also a key word here. Yeah.
Okay. So use what you already have, because there's enough out there. That's what you're saying, basically.
Already
that you can
have
build.
it, and maybe even more, maybe more systematically and really involvement. I think involvement. What's the problem with involvement? It's time, it's effort, it's capacity. But if you really do that effort and building it in from the start, I think it will, it will catch up positively.
Okay, good. Parita, coming with another question to you related to that. I think Lucy already mentioned selection criteria for the partnerships. You might already have had the time to have a look at this specific program, and we see a couple of selection criteria. We just discussed portfolio relevance, but for example, also critical mass, partners composition, pan-European relevance, business plan, openness, and flexibility as well. So do you think that this selection criteria that have been introduced are flexible enough to accommodate the different policy needs?
Yeah, actually, often when we talk about the kind of boundaries, and we also talked about when I was explaining the regional engagement, that sometimes it's not structurally possible. So first of all, of course, you need to do things structurally possible. So open the doors for that engagement, but often that's not enough. And I think I think the principles and the criteria are good. I think the main issue will be in actually mobilizing the actors, and also that's maybe the worry, or I'm very practical, so I'm a bit worried more about how in practice can we enhance the current partnership in a way that indeed the regional strand does not go in parallel, but is also brought into the picture. And how do we interpret the tripartite? Is that member states and industry and commission, or is that private and public, which allows,
and
of
public
course,
is broader,
which allows, of course, much more collaboration. So I'm really, for me, it's essential that we mobilize that we tap into the assets, the talent, the innovations across Europe, and mobilize the territorial ecosystems also in the partnerships in an effective way. So that would be my plea. And of course, and that maybe brings also this question, of course, that we need, of course, strategic directionality in the partnership, which is looking at different themes, but then we need to make sure that it's flexible enough for the ecosystems that are around different areas can then bring and participate into this. And this is not so easy. Huh? So this is the hard part that we have to work with.
I think that's part of the program proposal, right? When we talk about partnerships, there's a possibility for people, for partnerships and organizations to enter, to exit again. So that's an approach that from a regional perspective is appreciated? Or do you think that's too easy because people commit and they should be committed throughout the whole course of such a partnership?
But you still have to be in the process. You have to get to the process. So it's all about engaging the ones that cannot yet or do not know yet. And so we need this facilitation process to be much stronger to be able to actually get there.
And if you look at those selection criteria just mentioned as well, are those really facilitators and enablers for the region? Or would you say, well, some of them, well, for some, we might be put off by such selection criteria because on the regional level with our own programs, it's much easier.
Yeah, I really again, it's really not so much about the criteria; it's about how it's going to be implemented, how the people are going to work on those.
The details
it's
behind
about,
the criteria.
It's really about the way we work, way we implement, way we allow and encourage these things to go forward, because we saw some of the comments because we wrote a paper on the current European partnerships. It is a complex process for smaller actors from the ground to participate in the partnership. So we need more to facilitate.
Complex but not impossible. That's something that the partnership should facilitate. Lucy, coming back to you a final time, because I know you need to leave at 12:15, and I know you also brought up the topic of selection criteria. So if there's anything that you would like to say, you're more than welcome to do so right now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Regarding the selection criteria, I think, yes, we are happy with them. We just agree with the concept. This is quite obvious. However, the current draft legal documents regarding FP10 are still maybe too general. We know that there should be, of course, some room for flexibility, but this flexibility that we see right now in the draft regulation is too broad. So to simply say it, we don't understand, maybe as Pirit also pointed out, how it will work in practice. What will be the concrete form of implementation? So that's why I mentioned that the template, for example, of the Memorandum of Understanding would be really useful, as we know that the Memorandum of Understanding will be something by default for the European partnerships. And then we can see whether it works well or not, and whether we should also maybe somehow modify or to put into more detail these selection criteria that are already introduced, that have been presented. And I'm quite positive about the discussion that are right now going on, for example, on the Research Working Party, which has been discussed the European partnerships quite recently. And we also expect some kind of this discussion at the Partnership Knowledge Hub with the representative of the member states. So that if we can, of course, discuss the more detail, it would be very useful. Then we could add something more maybe missing.
Okay.
And I'm really sorry, I will have to disconnect right now because I'm going to the doctors. So I just want to say I was very happy to be with you, and it was my big pleasure. Thank you very much.
Keep healthy. Please give Lucy a big hand. Thank you, the audience.
Thank you.
Okay. So perhaps a little bit too much flexibility. Alexandra, I would say from the perspective of industry, let's give us as much flexibility as possible. The less rules, the better.
Yeah, but you also need, definitely flexibility is relevant, important, but you also need common set of framework.
The question, however, is at what level of detail, of course.
At what level of details? Yeah. This is where a lot is at stake. I think from our perspective, we are overall, what I'm getting from the membership, from my membership so far, is we are overall okay with the set of selection criteria. I think building on what Pirita said, it will be, of course, about implementation. It will be, if some will be very clear, maybe there will be some room for interpretation for others. So that is something interested to have in mind. I think also what will be very interesting in the implementation is what happens with the selection criteria when there will be two partnership proposals competing at the same time. So this is where will be interesting to see how those selection criteria are being used and implemented.
And then you mean two partnerships competing within the same kind of sector? Or like
could be.
Yeah. But I think that's exactly what should be avoided with the portfolio approach, right? That we kind of like streamline this idea of, well, having competition, that's good, but try to bring some of them more closely together.
Yeah. But at some stage, you might be facing some I name it competition, but some level of decisions to be made in which direction you are going.
Good. Thanks a lot. Okay, dear audience, we've done a lot of talking, and you might have thought, I've been listening, but I want to speak a little bit myself as well. Then now is your opportunity. I'd like to ask you if you might have a question for the whole panel, for one of the panel members, and we'll be having someone walking around with microphones as well. So we take a first question on that side, and then I saw two hands over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Daria Julkowska from INSERM. I'm the coordinator of the Rare Diseases Partnership, which is the co-funded partnership. And I'm one of those dinosaurs that are there since
Congratulations.
More than 15 years.
Great to have you.
I have actually two questions, comments. The first one is, you mentioned, it has been mentioned several times, this 10% versus 1/3, 2/3 when it comes to the budget. But on the other hand, we know about the strategic importance of the collaboration, which is very much actually in hands of the European Union, and the fact that, today the 10% of the European Union that is being brought to the partnerships is extremely important, and you are also mentioning that we need to be better in cooperation. So I was wondering how much actually this balance between the budgets and the investment and who brings how much money in comparison with the strategy is being balanced in the whole process. So that's my first question. And the second one is about health. So we're talking about also the FP10, the different parts of it. And we consider that health is an investment, not spending. I have not heard much about actually this as an important element of the overall strategy. And when it comes to the competitiveness, today we have a portfolio of an interesting portfolio of health partnerships that are relatively complementary in their scope and what they are doing. And so I was wondering, what is the strategy for the next one? Is it going to be driven by technology. So does it mean that we are going to limit the societal impact to powerful technologies because of the competitiveness, or how the societal impact and benefit is going to be kept as part of the strategy?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. I think Pauline, they're very much going into your direction.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I'm not sure I've really grasped the first question. What the repartition of the investment in R&I in Europe that I've presented earlier is facts. I mean, it's like this. So there's nothing much we can do about it. So I'm not sure I grasped the question. The question. For the second question, there is nothing in the legal text as proposed by the Commission that is restricting European partnership to the competitiveness side of collaborative research. Hence, we could have European partnership in also finance, because at the end of the day it goes with budget, also finance from the society part of collaborative research of our proposal.
Yeah.
So that was one comment, and the second comment linked to health is the fact that health is very much, let's say, spelled out as a priority for investment in the European Competitiveness Fund in one of the policy windows. So I think this domain is well covered and well identified as a strategic area.
Yeah, and how it's then going to evolve and build up, that's still the big question mark, but that health is seen as a clear priority. I mean, that's something that you clearly underline. Okay, I saw two questions over there as well. If we can bring the microphone, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Michael Hübner. I'm coordinating the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, a co-funded partnership, and I'm another of the dinosaurs, as it has been called, from the very
And you're probably going to say energy is an investment as well, right?
Energy, yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Okay, no, all jokes aside, please go ahead.
So the question that I want to raise is because I think looking on the long history of partnerships that we had, for me, and this is a very personal view, it's a logic next step that we are trying to take. So I think highly appreciated. One important element that you raised several times is the central financial management. Could you elaborate a little bit on what is the idea behind this? Because there are many fantasies at the moment what this could mean, and I think it could be a tricky point, but also on a legal from a legal perspective, and it would be very interesting to learn at least what are the basic ideas behind this.
Okay, thank you. Pauline, 3 simple words: central financial management, but there's a lot behind it, but perhaps there's still a lot in the works that you cannot comment on.
No. I mean, what we want to avoid is the complexities that go with cascading funding that we have today. And through a centrally managed financing, we would avoid those cascading, and hence we have more. I mean, it's leaner. What are the investments made? It's easier to. It's more transparent, and it's easier to handle. So that was, I would say, the first intention behind our proposal. Then, if you allow me, because you give me this opportunity on the forms of implementation of centrally managed financing and a work program based by default partnership, it's something that we are working on. There are several options that can be explored. It's not something we are doing in isolation, because it has a lot to do as well with the boundaries that we have of our financial regulation. But it's something that we are sorting out with our colleagues within the Commission. And when the thinking is stabilized internally within the Commission, it will obviously be shared with first co-legislators so that we get the best chances of having our proposal going through.
Okay, so there's more to come, but of course, so if you have any suggestions, this is your opportunity during this day to bring them to the Commission. I think, Alexander, you also wanted to comment on this.
Not on this actually, but on the fact that the two comments talked about dinosaurs.
Go ahead.
I just want to make the comment, if I'm not wrong, the Commission interim evaluation of Horizon shows that the oldest partnership have been the one leveraging the highest resources compared to the newest partnership. So there is, you can easily understand there is a logic into this, but yeah, I think this is just a fact. I don't want to take it as a fact and have a comment what is good or bad, but just a reality in terms of leveraging resources, also from the private sector.
Yeah, that's an interesting remark, of course, because we heard in the beginning also from Mr. Lemaitre, of course, programs shouldn't be defined just by their longevity, that they've been around for such a long time, but indeed, if you can indicate it really leverages a lot of additional resources and that it really has impact, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be around, of course. Yeah, good, thanks. I think the lady sitting, perfect, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Also from Clean Energy Transition Partnership, Tanya Suni, running the impact and exploitation work package there. Now, every speaker and the document have stressed the weakness of impact and deployment in the current partnerships, and going forward, that is something that really needs to be strengthened, that's clear. But deployment and adoption of these results requires resources and skills. It requires increasing the market and societal readiness of the solutions. That is not happening in the current partnerships very much. We are doing a lot of it in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, but there are structural difficulties. I still notice that in none of the criteria proposed, these things emerge. So nothing is there about the need for doing impact and exploitation and readiness work in the future partnerships. So I'd ask whether this will change. Will you be requiring this? Because even the new European Competitiveness Fund will not help. The synergies will not help unless the solutions have business viability, because the new fund can only fund solutions that have business viability, and that doesn't happen by itself. It requires impact and exploitation work. And final comment, DG RTD itself has worked a lot on these issues during the past years and decades, actually. They have a knowledge valorization guiding principle updated in 2022, and new 2 codes of practice on industry-academia co-design, which would help in these matters, and in public engagement. So those 3 things could be easily adopted into the criteria of the new partnership portfolio, I think. So I'd very much like to hear your comments on this. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for your question and your suggestion. And I'd like to, we'll see who would like to comment. Perfect. Purita, please take the floor.
I would like to comment on this because it resonates a bit with some discussions that I had also with some colleagues about the issues of impact and market pool also, and how to take into and how to look into the, let's say, the evaluation and how we actually measure the success of the partnership. So this is definitely something that should be considered. Then maybe a comment on the knowledge valorization, which for example, from my perspective, seems a little bit still theoretical sometimes. So there again, a question of how can we actually make that speak to the to the different actors on the ground. So that would be my comment on that. But in theory, of course, it's a good thing to look at as well.
Okay, thank you, Benedicta.
No, it's just a very quick comment. I think the synergies and the link to the competitiveness fund is probably what we, for now, see as the most unclear. So I think it's a very good point that you made, and I think if this is really going to work, it's also very complex, the synergy part in itself, to other programs. And also, I could also mention the links to ERC or other parts of Horizon. But I think it's very exciting to see that there is an ambition for connection with the ESF, but how and what? I think it's we're looking forward to learn more about that. I think probably in the months to come.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Still some open questions. Not everything perhaps perfectly answered, but luckily very soon we're going to have like 1.5 hours of break. We're going to take a final question from the lady. Apologies, gentlemen, but as said, we will have opportunity during the lunch break. Please represent yourself.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the other. Margherita Cappelletto, Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership Coordinator. I have a question. Don't you see the risk that the EIT kick, at least in some sector, given this tripartite composition, could draw some resource? Or, to be positive, how can be synergies sought, in particular for regard to the industry investment and engagement? Thanks.
Okay. So the role of the knowledge and innovation communities. Does anyone have a thought on that? And how that could be better included? Thanks for helping us out, Pauline.
Many thanks for the question. What we call the knowledge triangles and the activities of supported by the EIT and embodied by the KICs are activities that are extremely important for the Commission. We believe that nurturing this knowledge triangle is of utmost importance. And you will find those activities spelled out in our legal proposal, in the fourth part of our proposal with the budget that goes with it. So this was, I would say, on the activities in themselves. For the KICs, we know that we know the framework in which they operate, the time frame they are also operating into, with the time bound of the 10 years. They are de facto, you are right, partnerships. So they will be looked out as such, and their activities when the selection and the portfolio building will be done. So yeah, this is what I can say.
So it's part of the bigger bucket of partnerships with all their different kind of connotations, legal basis, and so on and so forth. So still to come, I would say. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up this panel with a final question, and we're going to make it very simple. What is the one element you believe will be most crucial for making FP10 partnership successful? And if you can present this to us in one word, that would be helpful, because then people have more time to enjoy their lunch. May I start with you, Parita?
Oof, I'm very bad in just saying one word.
That's already 6 words. Yeah, but give it a try.
I would say still the policy policy coordination, and that followed by joint investments.
Okay, thank you. Benedicte?
Well, I've talked a lot about involvement, so I think I will have to say to start a parallel process of both doing implementation and strategy at the same time, and involvement around that. I think that will be key in first step going forward, and I think there is a number of there is a list of other things also for success.
Good.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's really hard to stick to one word. We're gonna try with Alexandre.
Budget.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Pauline.
I would say, let's see after the interinstitutional agreement.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our panel members a big hand. So, and I'm sure we'll have enough to discuss during the lunch break that will be taking place right now on the 5th floor. You'll have your break until 2 o'clock, and afterwards you are going to have the parallel sessions. I also put them on the screen over here with the mentioned room numbers as well. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll see each other later. Thank you.